Okay, so like I said, I told you I was going to cover special taxes, and this is a category that I lumped a bunch of stuff into. So, payroll tax. Now, I want you guys to understand, if you are a sole proprietor or a partnership, you should not put yourself on payroll. You should just pay yourself money out of the business, but you shouldn't run it through a payroll company. You do not need to sign up for anything like that. So you won't have to pay these taxes on yourselves as the business owners. However, if you hire employees, like as in they actually qualify as employees, not as contractors, then you will have payroll taxes to pay. And some of those you will see these acronyms. There's FICA, FUTA, and unemployment. And so really, FICA stuff is more like that Social Security, Medicare, and then you have to pull income taxes out of employees' pay. And then there's unemployment both on the federal level and on the state level a lot of times. So you need to make sure that you're prepared for all of this. So if you do hire employees, I highly, highly recommend working with a full service payroll company. I have all my clients on Gusto, and they're fantastic. So I will put a link for Gusto in here if you hire employees. Now, employees are different than contractors. So make sure to read the post I have linked about the difference between employees and contractors and how that works. But if you do have employees, then payroll taxes are something you're going to have to deal with, and they are something you don't want to mess around with. So that's why I recommend companies like Gusto, because when they run payroll, they pull all the taxes out for you and they pay them for you. So you're not getting, you know, to the end of the quarter having to pay all these payroll taxes and not having enough money in your bank account to cover them. That's a really scary thing. Unpaid payroll taxes is actually one of the fastest ways to make the IRS angry at you. So we don't mess around with those. I put penalties and fees on here because it's something I want you guys to be aware of. And when I say penalties and fees, this could apply to your federal taxes like IRS. This could apply to your state taxes. And in theory, if you were responsible for things like sales tax or payroll taxes, you could end up having penalties or fees if you don't pay the right amounts at the right time. Now, I don't want you guys to be totally terrified of these because depending on what it is, you know, they're small amounts, but the more you let things build up, the bigger the penalties and the fees are. So one of the most common penalties that new business owners will get is what's called underpayment penalty. And really what that is when you owe the IRS money, they want you to owe them less than $1,000 when you file your annual tax return. So we know tax season is between February and April 15th, typically. And you have to file your annual tax return and you figure out, do I owe them money or do I get a refund back? So if you owe them money, they don't like it when you owe them more than $1,000. So if you owe them more than $1,000 when you go to file your tax return, they're going to tack on this underpayment penalty, saying, you didn't pay us throughout the year, so now you have to, you know, get a slap on the wrist for not paying us. Because our income tax system is pay as you go. That means they expect to receive money throughout the year, which is why there's this whole thing called quarterly estimated taxes. And if you don't pay those, then you can owe penalties. Also, if you do end up owing the IRS at tax time and you don't have enough money to pay them, they may, you can, you know, make payments, but there'll be, you know, late fees and penalties and interest and that kind of stuff. Now, it's not horrible as long as you can pay them off in a reasonable amount of time, but just be aware that they will tack these things on if you don't pay them when they say and how much they say. So it happens. It's not the end of the world. And also, a lot of times when this is your first couple years in business, you had no idea, you weren't working with a tax professional, then they have a lot more grace, and you can ask for forgiveness of penalties and things like that. So those are options just to let you guys know and be aware of how those work. So those are the special taxes, and now we're going to dive into filing your taxes and paying your taxes.